Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with big-time Bill Collier with an exclusive interview. Richard?
Bill, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure's all yours, guys. Thanks for having me.
It certainly is. I personally said this, and if this is going to be a shoot interview, I'm going to go shoot. You are the first person that I wanted to make sure that we did this interview with, and I'm glad we finally got that wish granted.
Well, if you're looking around the PWR locker room, who else does it need to be? I mean, do I not stand head and shoulders above everyone else to you?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, I'm 6'3", guy. Come on.
6'3", and I don't think anybody can really admire your height and size without standing next to you. Is that...
That's a fair statement.
Okay.
That's a fair statement.
All right. All right, well, what we want to do here is we want to go over the career of Bill Collier so far. We want to kind of talk about the beginning and the growth of Bill Collier and what Bill Collier is today at this point in time and the accomplishments and the titles and all the other achievements that he's racked up until this point.
All right.
Does that sound like a plan?
What do you got?
So, what got you started with professional wrestling? What made you a fan of professional wrestling?
My story with getting into the professional wrestling business isn't much different than anybody else's. As a kid, I sat in awe of what I saw, of what looked like superhuman men fighting, and they looked indestructible. They were jacked. They looked like supermen. They looked like real-life superheroes to me. And I can always remember the way I felt watching wrestling. Now that I want to do. So in that aspect, my story really isn't much different than most other people. It's just enamored of what I saw on television growing up. I watched wrestling all the time. It was all I did. I can remember my younger brother. A lot of people don't know that I have a younger brother, but I do. I can remember grabbing my little brother and putting him in wrestling holds all the time and getting into trouble, knocking off, and grounded from wrestling forever. But as I got a little older, I decided, this could be that one thing that I don't grow out of. Like, I'm growing out of toys. I'm growing out of playing with Matchbox cars, coloring books, school. You're growing out of all of it.
Right.
But for some reason, this pro wrestling thing kept sticking. It kept sticking with me, and I kept sticking with it. And there came a point where I thought, all right, let's give us a run. Let's see if I can really do this. Let's see how good I am. Let's see if I can compete on at least a local level.
Right. Go ahead, Ted.
Now, speaking of you being enamored by professional wrestling whenever you were younger, who did you always idolize to be?
I always envisioned myself being me, but some of the guys I idolized on TV, first and foremost, like as a young kid, I was a Hulkamaniac, and I loved what I saw with Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was larger than life. He was big. He was strong. Body slamming Andre the Giant, I can remember watching that on pay-per-view and thinking that there's nothing this guy can't do. This guy's so strong. But then after a while, I'm watching Hulk Hogan do the same thing over and over and over. And then there was another character that I saw that he didn't need to do anything. My attention was already there. It's when I first saw Undertaker. I was like, this is so unique. It's so different than anything else I've ever seen. Like, at the time, I didn't know what it was. But as I grew older, I was like, this is so different than anything else. The guy was, again, what I would have liked to have been, 7 foot, 330 pounds, but that wasn't in the cards. But for a guy that size that could do the things he could do, the guy could move, he can wrestle, he can work, he had a great character. He had the attention of the audience before he even hit the ring. Right. I love that about The Undertaker's character.
So, Bill Collier feels like this is something that he absolutely wants to pursue and something he wants to do with his life. Where does he go from that childhood dream making it into a reality?
First thing I did was watching it, signed up for the wrestling team in school. This is how you get there. You gotta know how to wrestle.
Right.
So my school didn't have a wrestling program until I was in 9th grade. So I started as a 10th grader, and that's varsity, and that is no place to start on a wrestling mat. None. but I finished my sophomore year with a 17-9 record. By my senior year, 2 years later, I was undefeated in the regular season. I was state qualifier. I did exceptionally well in a very short amount of time. Then after school, I spent a few years. I spent a few years in the gym, getting my body ready. I was getting ready to look at going to Keystone Championship Wrestling to train with Cato. Well, at the time, Cato didn't have a training building, so a friend of mine says, hey, I'm wrestling with this other group, this APWF, and why don't you come over here? We can get you ready, and we can show you a few things, and we give you a tryout and see how you do. So I went to APWF, and I had a tryout. They showed me a few things here and there. My first training session lasted me maybe 30 minutes. Then I got a short history lesson on the company, how they got started. And the guy running the show, Bubba Brewer, looks at me right in the face and goes, our next show's January 20th. You're on it. This is 3 weeks away.
Right.
I thought, this is easy.
This was after your first training
This
session.
is after my first training session.
Oh, wow.
I thought to myself, I'll be in the WWE by the end of January. Well, I start rolling around in the ring. My execution was always good. I was always really safe. But I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
I didn't know anything about what I was doing at training. Well, then the other trainer, Diamond Troy Justice, gets a good look at me. And he sits back and he says, this guy right here, this is our Insaniac. I kind of stopped and I looked around the room, and my buddy Chris that took me to this tryout kind of like looks and gives me the, you don't want to go there. No. I thought, Insaniac? What's this? I was at least intrigued to hear.
Right.
He brings out this like robe from Rocky 2. It's all yellow. It's with the black writing. It says Insaniac. He has like this really cheeseball mask that I'm going to wear. And he says, this is the character. This is what you're going to do. Basically, the character, as described to me, was a cross between an Undertaker and a Kane character that wore a mask. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I kind of want to be me. I kind of want to have my own identity.
Right. This
was a character that company wanted. Well, Troy wanted, and he thought would fit good with the company. Well, I thought, this is what pro wrestling is. You kind of do what you're told. You pay your dues, and this is it. So the first match comes, and I'm the Insaniac. I win my match in about. I win my match in the first minute and a half. And I go back behind the curtain, and the crowd was next to quiet. It wasn't that they didn't like what I was doing. They didn't know how to take the character yet.
Right.
So as time goes on, like the crowd's kind of getting into it, but I'm not. I'm really not feeling the character at all. I felt like I had more ability to offer. I had more to offer than just this character. Well, I called Troy, and I had talked to him about getting out of the character, and he said, absolutely not. Not going to happen. If I have my way, you'll die in that character. Wow. Here I am. I'm one of the better trainees they have, and I'm looking around at this entire roster of guys, and everybody else is kind of getting to be who they want to be.
Right.
And they're not really being dictated to. But here I was being told, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to shut up, and you're going to like it. I didn't like that at all. So I started being real vocal about not liking it. I started to act out a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have, but maybe I should have. Well, then Bubba comes to me, and he says, we're thinking about dropping the Insaniac gimmick. We want to let you beat you and kind of see how you do. This happened within a period of maybe 6 months. During this time, I'm going to training every week, and I think I'm getting better. Here, I don't know anything.
Right.
Like, I just thought this was wrestling training. I'm not really picking anything up. I'm just kind of going over matches, kind of doing what they want to do. Well, then the former owner of the company from, I want to say Orlando, Florida, bear with me if that's wrong, starts pulling strings and pushing buttons from Orlando, Florida on a company and a product that he hasn't seen with people he hasn't seen telling Bubba and Troy how to shift the direction of their company. Troy, of course, doesn't like it. Bubba, of course, he's headlong into it.
Right.
So now that starts to create a rift between those two. During which time, now the bickering begins about, am I going to be the Insaniac or am I going to be Bill Collier? That caused a big rift between the two of them with Chris Lash, and now Troy decides he's going to leave APWF. He's going to start his own company, DCW. Now the two of them are fighting back and forth pretty hard at the time, and I'm kind of being used as a pawn during that, and I didn't like any of that. I was very upset. I was angry. I was told at both companies, you come with my company, you'll be the champ. You'll be the champion of the world. And at that time in my head, I'm like, well, champion of the world. WWE is going to sign me right after this.
Right.
That's not really what I thought, but so I did stay with the APWF for a while. I was me. I won my first APWF title 8 months after getting in the business. Well, I didn't like it. I still didn't like what was going on. I didn't like the arguing back and forth between them. They thought I was a double agent for both companies. And it got to the point where it felt like maybe I wasn't going to be welcome at either one of them.
Right.
Because they were so hell-bent on hating each other and using me as that pawn because I was their standout trainee. Kato finally calls and says, hey, what's going on over there? So how are things? And I had to watch because I knew Kato because when I first started, he was coming around, and he was the guy I really wanted to train with because he trained a lot of good wrestlers. I thought, if I could get next to Kato, he could help me out a little better. He could help me become more of the performer that I want to be. So I get to talking to Kato, but I don't want to tell him too much because I know Kato to be a silver-tongued devil. He's going to tell me everything I want to hear, and then he'll turn on me like a pet raccoon.
Right.
That's exactly what I thought. So I was being very cautious about how to approach the situation with Kato. Well, Kato would call every week to check up on me and make sure. He says, look, you're too big. You have too much potential. He says, I don't want you to walk away from this. You see, you can enjoy this. It's not always this miserable.
Right.
He said, I have a training building now. Why don't you at least stop by and tell me how you like it? He says, I'm not going to guarantee you anything at all. And then he stopped. He says, yes, I will. I'll guarantee you one thing. He says, well, wait a minute. I'll guarantee you two things. And then 3, 4, 10 things. You're world champ, undefeated. And he didn't offer all that. He guaranteed me 2 things. One, he guaranteed me an education in the wrestling business. He would educate me on how the business works. And he guaranteed me I could be me. I could do this the way I wanted to when I stepped in the ring. Now, of course, everything's sounding really good, as I figured it would. So I went to a KCW show to watch live. Afterwards, Big Lenny pulls me aside in the parking lot, and he was the one that actually sold me on KCW. I haven't spoke more than 2 words to Big Lenny before that, but he was the one that sold me that this is the place you want to be. If you're going to learn and grow, this is where it'll be. So I took a leap of faith, and I told those guys, hey, you know what? You guys fight amongst yourselves. I'm going to go ahead over here and get real training. Well, within my first month, I realized maybe I don't know what I thought I did.
Right.
Maybe I have no idea how this works. I thought this is wrestling training over here. This is the way things were done. It couldn't have been further from the truth. Kato opened up a whole new world to me and says, no, this is how it's done. This is how you should look. This is how you should be. This is how people should perceive you. And he let me go and he let me be me, and I hit the ground running. I mean, nothing could stop me after that. A little bit of education. I owe every bit of everything that goes into every one of my matches to my training with Kato. Without that training from Kato and spending that time with him, I would have never became the performer that I am. Ever. I guarantee you that. Kato was the one who instilled in me ring psychology, how to be my character, how to connect with an audience. That all come from Kato. So I owe him everything that I do is a direct result of everything I've learned from him.
Now, before we get into Kato, I have a question for you. about, you talked about going over and having Cato help you and teach you. Did you feel cheated or taken advantage of from APWF because of their lack of teaching, and they're throwing you right into this first show 3 weeks away, like you said? Did you feel cheated or taken advantage of in that manner?
No, at the time I had not. I didn't feel like I was being cheated. I felt like they seen a big guy that was somewhat marketable they could put on their shows, and I would be able to help. I never thought I would be the guy that people pay to see, but I thought I could help. I could at least be one segment where people are like, well, hey, look at this guy. This guy's pretty good. This guy's all right. I thought I could help. I could pull my weight. But I never felt cheated by them at any stretch of the imagination. I was very upset with the way I was handled more than anything. I never felt cheated. APWF had a good reputation when I started for turning out good people, but they had different trainers then.
Right.
So APWF did have a good name to it, and I was happy to be a part of that. But no, I never really felt cheated. I was upset in the way that they handled me coming in and the way they handled me going out. I was very upset with that.
All right. Now, you spoke about Cato, and is it okay to say that Cato is a very controversial name when it comes to independent wrestling in this area?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He'll be the first one to tell you that he has a name that he even calls himself. And he says you kind of have to be like that to make it, to have a successful wrestling product. And he's absolutely right. But the thing is, for people that think Cato is that guy, it's because Cato has a vision for what he thinks this business is. He has a vision for what he feels like his company and his guys should be and how they should carry themselves and how they should act. And he isn't going to waver. He isn't going to waver for anybody. And I agree with his viewpoints. Is he controversial? Absolutely. I like it. I like the way that he is. I like the way he behaves as far as his views and the way he conducts business. I like that. I like the way he trains people. He's trained a lot of good guys in the area. I was one of them. I was very fortunate to have Cato's training. Controversial? Yes. Is it a bad thing? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of things to say about Cato, some good, some bad, and I just wanted to hear your input about it.
Now, going back to you being trained by Cato, is there anyone who really stands out, looking back now, that you were trained alongside with?
I came along for Cato and KCW at the tail end of what they were doing. They were real big right before I got there, and they had a great group of guys. They were kind of like a family. I know when I first started with Cato, they accepted me in as one of their own, like a part of their family. But because they reached such heights before, I never really felt like a part of the KCW brand, because they reached such heights without me, and they've always talked about the glory days, and I wasn't a part of it. It was nothing about them, because they've accepted me with open arms. But I came along at the tail end of that. And the other guy that trained with me that seemed to be picking things up just as fast, but was a totally different look, was Jimmy the Flying Hippie. Jimmy the Flying Hippie, if you've seen him, he's absolutely phenomenal with his athletic ability and what he's able to do. Right. It's a totally different look than big time Bill Collier. It's two different ends of the spectrum, but you can very much see the similarities in training with the two of us.
So were you trained together alongside of Jimmy?
Yeah, I believe Jimmy started a little while before I did with Cato.
Okay. We
broke in about the same time, but he was with Cato. I was with APWF. When I came in to KCW, I want to say late 2007, Jimmy was already there, and he was already a standout of the class.
Right.
And I wasn't worried about like, oh my God, is this guy going to be the best guy in the class? Because what he does and what I do are two different things.
Right.
We looked around training. There was probably 8 of us or so, and it was everybody kind of had something different. But we all had that one common goal in mind, and Cato had a common goal to train us to be the best we could be.
Right.
And that mindset still sits with me today, to be the best performer, the best wrestler, the best worker that I can be.
Absolutely. So you leave training, you get help with Cato. What happens from there? Who do you start to work with? What do you feel is your big break into this business?
One of the biggest things that happened to me, and I'm not just saying this because we're here at Pro Wrestling Rampage. Pro Wrestling Rampage was one of the first companies to... I was being booked pretty regularly, but they were one of the first companies to look at me and say, we can put this guy out front, and we can do well with him. This guy could be a leading guy. It was like if I were an actor, it would have been my first leading role.
Right.
I was like, I can do this. They had faith in me. They brought me along, and my first program at the time was with J-Rock. And for me, that was another learning experience. He subscribes to the same mentality as Cato as far as being the best you can absolutely be in the ring. Aside from Cato at training, the guy that I learned the most from on the job was probably J-Rock. He has one of the best minds for the business that I've ever seen. And he helped get me where I need to be. If PWR was going to saddle up on my back, he was going to be the guy to help get me there. And he really was. He was the first guy to... PWR saw the vision. He was the first guy to help get me there. He said, okay, if this is going to be the guy, here's how we get him there. And without working with J-Rock, I would have still gotten there eventually, but it was so much faster thanks to him because everything was like right now. He was so smooth, and J-Rock was good to me. He was really good to me. I learned on the job working with J-Rock.
So it's funny you say that because the first time that I saw you was in my hometown of Ashtabula, but I can't put you in the match with whoever it is that you were with because I don't quite remember. But the first time that I saw you that I remember, that match was a TLC match with John McChesney at, I believe, another anniversary show of PWR's.
You're talking about in Girard.
In Girard, yes.
That would have been April 2012, TLC match with John McChesney.
Right. And that was the first time I really remember seeing big-time Bill Collier and thinking to myself, this is not just a big man that can stand there and let people run into him and bounce off. That's not the kind of person that Bill Collier is. Bill Collier is an all-around wrestler that can do just about anything anybody else can do. Is that a fair statement?
I feel like I can keep up with smaller guys like John McChesney, Aaron Draven, Jimmy the Hippie. As a matter of fact, I prefer working with smaller guys to bigger guys.
Right.
Because when I work with a smaller guy, I can keep up with their pace.
Right.
I can get down, I can get up, I can move around. I'm athletic.
Right.
I'm an athlete. At 6'3" and 250 pounds, I'm an athlete.
Right.
And I enjoy working with somebody who's smaller, who moves a little faster, somebody that I can keep up with. With saying that, don't discredit Shane Taylor.
Yeah.
Because he's also another one of those guys that I've seen him have phenomenal matches with smaller guys.
Right. Now, you talked about PWR and getting into PWR. How soon thereafter was it that you became the heavyweight champion of PWR? Because I doing my research, you were a winner of a PWR heavyweight title tournament. You defeated Maverick McCoy in the first round, Lumberjack LaRue in the second, and in the finals, like you were talking about, J-Rock for the heavyweight championship. How long did that take for them to really come to terms with you being that front guy?
I can remember hearing the talks for the tournament. The tournament took place in May of 2008. Okay. I can remember talks for the tournament starting in January. Who we're going to have, how it's going to go, how things are going to shake down. And PWR started in November. Right. So we did November, December, January, we're talking about a title tournament and how things are going to shake up.
Right.
So it was 6 months before the actual tournament took place, and I was champion in PWR. Right. Now, make no mistake about it, at the time, John McChesney was on top of his game. J-Rock was on top of his game. PWR was a stacked locker room.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I was going to do okay or not. I felt like I could, but this was going to be the test. This was going to be the real test to see, okay, can you run with some of the guys that are not only the best in our area, but some of the best in like the Northeast on the East Coast.
Right.
I'll go as far as saying that at that time, PWR was a landmark independent company. It was a place that you wanted to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the fact that they put some faith in me and put some backing into me, says a lot about how the company felt about me.
Right. I mean, and you're saying that PWR being that big, you're completely correct in that, because I remember as a younger child than I am now, of seeing those stacked lineups and seeing those stacked cards and thinking, this is the best of the area all coming together to one place. And like you're saying, what did it feel like? What did it feel like to have someone put that much faith into you, to take you and give you the ball and let you run with it?
I felt like my first title run with PWR. I'm going to make some people angry with this, but here it goes. I felt like it was more of a gift.
Okay.
Now they had faith in me, but it was like, hey, I really didn't do anything to earn that first title run. It was more, okay, let's see how you do.
Right.
And I felt like, again, working with J-Rock, working with some of the top guys there, through the months that kept going, because that title reign was, I believe, 16 or 17 months consecutive. And it was over and over and over, and I was starting to have really good matches. I was starting to produce. I was starting to get really good crowd reactions. But I really felt like that first title run was, well, okay, here, let's see how you do.
Right.
It wasn't until the second title run where I beat Shane Taylor at the third anniversary show for my second title run. That's when I felt like this is the one I earned. I've earned this one, because after losing the title, to put it back on me 3 months later, showed that, hey, I can be that guy. That was the biggest confidence boost I had, because at the time, Shane Taylor and me were only in the wrestling business maybe 3 years apiece.
Right.
We were the main event heavyweight title match.
Right.
And in my opinion, we tore it down. Just the two of us. We didn't need... This is not a knock on the main event that night. The main event that night was John McChesney and Rocky Reynolds in a body bag match. Shane Taylor and me didn't need hockey sticks, body bags, hockey masks, steel chairs. It was him and me. It was a fight. And I think we did every bit as good as they did.
Right. Fair enough. And you must have shown something, because like you said, you won the PWR Heavyweight Championship 3 times.
The third time I was excited about, because now things in PWR were a little different. I was the good guy. It was starting to be almost like a John Cena syndrome, where I was winning matches every single month. I was closing out the show every single month. I'm the good guy. I'm pumping my fist. Hey, I'm smiling. I'm smacking hands, and I'm glad you guys came. The thumbs up, and I'm as white meat baby face as it gets. And it started with a few people here and there with a little booze, and then it's a little bit more. Next thing you know, it's about 40% of the audience is booing. And I thought, okay, if this is where we're going to go, then let's go here.
Right.
Let's absolutely do this. I did the heel turn in September of 2010. September 11, 2010. Because it's September 11th.
Right.
But it was in 2010. John McChesney versus Rocky Reynolds for the title. Referee gets knocked down. I come out halfway through. I beg Commissioner Roberts, please, let me be the referee. I can do this. They're not going to knock me down. Look at me. I put the referee shirt on, and McChesney hits Rocky with a kick. McChesney's going to be the PWR heavyweight champion in his hometown, and this is something that people have waited for, and now it's going to finally happen. I'm going to make the 3 count for him. I get down 1, 2, and I stop. That place couldn't have been more angry at me, and I thought, yes, this just worked. Booed me out of the building. I turned on McChesney, left him laying, booed out of the building. Then that was the last PWR show for 10 months.